Good morning, everyone. So we're going to be talking about genetics now. We're going to go into some basics of it, not too much detail. To start us off, there is a video on the first slide, so please press play on that video for me. Now, Mendel's work. Okay, Gregor Mendel is known as the father of genetics. He's the one who pretty much came with the entire theory behind genetics and the study of genetics that then followed. He was a priest who lived in a monastery in the 1800s. He was actually the gardener for the monastery, so he was around the plants a lot. He began studying heredity in pea plants. Okay, again, peas are just like the little plants that grow, you eat them, okay? And he was known as the founder of genetics or father of genetics. So, what led to his studies has to do with pollination. Self-pollination is when the same plant takes pollen to the stigma and it grows a fruit from it from the same plant. Whereas cross-pollination happens between two different flowers. So if I have like a big plant growing another big plant, you can cross-pollinate between those two different flowers on the plants, or even like a different flower on a plant farther away. It has to be the same species of plant to cross-pollinate them. Okay? Now, Mendel noticed that pea plants have many traits that can come in two forms. And with that being said, some of those forms include a round versus wrinkled seed, a yellow versus green seed, the pod being inflated or constricted, green or yellow, the flower color being purple or white, even the flower's position of being axial versus terminal being like up top, axial to the side, and then the stem length of being short or tall. That being said, Mendel pollinated, removing some of the stamens, and that's this little part, if you looked at the previous one, that little that's stuck up kind of straight from the plant, and then he took the pollen, that's kind of like that light part, that kind of, if you're like Miss Hudson, you might be super allergic to it, right? And he took that and he put that on to make it either cross-pollinated or self-pollinated with a paintbrush. Now, when he did this, he noticed that he had to kind of keep track of things a little bit more. So, for example, each of the studies he did, he started with the parent plants. Here, he started with a tall plant and a short plant. From there, he had the F1 generation, so that's like the first little family that's formed from it. He noticed that all of those were tall. But then when he bred those two tall ones together from his F1 generation, he found that he had 3 tall and 1 short in his F2 or second family generation from those parent ones. That being said, he's like started to wonder why. Why is that when I take a tall and a short, it comes out with 2 talls, but when I breed those 2 talls, I have 3 tall and 1 short. So that led to this whole idea of the genetics of peas. Okay, more picture that one for you guys. You can pause if you need me to. So looking here, we have again parent generation, F1 generation, F2 generation. This all connects back to genes, right? Genes are factors that control traits. An example is tall or short or flower color. whereas alleles are different forms of a gene. Okay, so it could be white or purple. So if I'm saying like, hey, what's the person's genetics look like? I'm saying like, what factors control their traits, right? What controls the fact that Miss Hudson has blonde hair? Versus alleles are saying, hey, Miss Hudson could have blonde hair, but Miss Hudson's dad has dark brown hair. So why doesn't Miss Hudson have dark brown hair? Okay, that's our alleles. So two different things. You do need to differentiate between those two. So offspring get these alleles from their parents. Okay, we always get our alleles from our parents. It's not just like a magical poof, it appeared. Okay, parents produce the genes that you get through sex cells via meiosis. Remember, we talked in a lot of detail about mitosis. Meiosis is when you take the mommy cell and the daddy cell and you get the baby cell. And that's all the unique traits that make you you. Remember, we get one allele from mom and one allele from dad. Okay, together that makes you. You'll either be XX or XY. Now, there's a difference between dominant and recessive alleles, and this really ties back into our pea plants. So, in a pea plant, tall is a dominant trait, whereas short is a recessive trait. Dominant alleles can hide those recessive traits. Okay, so for Miss Hudson, the blonde hair is dominant, and the brown hair is recessive. As a result, Miss Hudson, she's showing the dominant blonde trait, but I could carry that brown recessive trait with me when I have kids. Okay? If the offspring receives a dominant allele, it's always going to show. There's a couple of exceptions of that one, but in general, I want you to think dominant shows. Recessive traits can cause a trait to show only if there's no dominant traits. So another factor that could happen, like, right, Miss Hudson has blue eyes. Okay? Blue eyes are generally recessive. Okay? In order for Miss Hudson to have blue eyes, she had to get recessive from mom and recessive from dad. Fun fact, both my parents have blue eyes, so I got both those recessive traits, and now I have blue eyes. But Miss Hudson's husband, he has brown eyes, but his dad has blue eyes. So he got brown eyes from his mom and blue eyes from his dad. If Miss Hudson, with her recessive, has a baby with Mr. Hudson, right, what would happen is there's a chance that the baby could have brown eyes, but there's also a chance that the baby could have blue eyes. We're going to talk about this a lot more when we get into Punnett squares. Now, please keep in mind, there's a difference between genotype and phenotype. Genotype is the alleles an offspring has on its chromosome, so it could be like the capital T versus lowercase t, whereas phenotype is the physical characteristics. So phenotype would be tall versus short. Okay, so we're saying those fancy little letters are the genotype, and our phenotype is a trait that it shows. Genotype and phenotype. Again, capital T, that means you have only dominant. So only dominant means that you're going to breed a tall hybrid. Sorry, purebred. Pardon me. Tall, purebred. You have a lowercase t, remember those are recessive, okay? But they're also purebred, okay, because they're the same. So you're going to have that short, purebred. Versus capital T, lowercase t is going to form a tall hybrid because those two are different, okay? Now, homozygous versus heterozygous, okay? Those are big fancy words which kind of refer just to our purebred versus hybrid. So a purebred organism is when it has like that capital B, or lowercase b. The letters have to be the same. Versus heterozygous means that it has to be different. Okay, so it'll be like a capital B, lowercase b, or a capital T, lowercase t. Okay, you do need to know those words, homozygous and heterozygous. If I catch you guys making jokes, we're going to have a big issue though. All right, quick little fun video for you guys to just kind of go over Gregor Mendel. Remember, he's going to show up in some of your homework reviews. I'm so sorry. Take care, guys. That was a pretty quick video. Bye.